Welcome back. To sum up the last video, I was talking about how I was having difficulty describing characters because I didn't feel that the details related to character were ever really contextually relevant. But then how I learned after that really if you are doing something in the way of making your vision of the story more concrete, the detail can always be relevant and that you should search for that relevance in how you write your story. What I want to talk about now relates to character, but is also just a point about detail in general. And it's about how all of this discussion reminds me of a text that I read in my History of Aesthetics philosophy course, sophomore year of college. We read a text by Lessing titled Laocoon, an essay on the limitations of painting and poetry. It dealt all about how different mediums of art have different limitations and restrictions and really need to maximize the space that they're given to be effective. Essentially what it came down to is this. There is poetry and painting. Painting which captures visually a single moment in time, and poetry which captures in words multiple moments of time. So in other words, we have a visual non-temporal medium and a temporal non-visual medium. The benefits with poetry or prose are that the words conjure up images that we can imagine in our mind. But what Lessing wants to say is that we shouldn't allow this crossover between mediums that often is used to help describe the way we use those mediums. For example, a lot of people say a picture is worth 1,000 words, or they say things like, write like you're trying to paint a painting and show the reader the image that you have in your mind. Now, the book is really outdated. It was originally published in 1766, but it still brings up some really interesting points about these mediums that we work with. And one of the main points that it makes is that a painting should not try to tell a story so much because it is non-temporal, because it is always stuck in a fixed point. An additional point that he makes about painting is that you should never paint or sculpt an image at the peak of emotional climax, because then there's no more emotional room for the imagination to go. That painting or picture will always be stuck and frozen in that one moment, and if it's the most intense moment, then there's nowhere to go. What he says with poetry is that you should use the medium in a way that tries to do more than just describe in images what's going on. If you say the word flower, obviously you could mean any type of flower, but if you narrow it down a bit, pretty much anyone knows what a flower looks like and will be able to imagine it without too much, pardon the pun, flowery prose. One of the points that he makes is that because prose is a temporal medium and can move through time, that we shouldn't use stationary images in our writing so much. In other words, we shouldn't write like we're trying to paint. He may be a little stringent in how he deals with these restrictions and lays them out for us to understand. But one thing I really liked was how he brought up how Homer used to relay physical detail of things. Homer would use the temporal medium of prose, poetry, epic poetry, to create a sort of temporal space where the vision of the image comes to life through a series of temporal events. For instance, if he's describing a shield, he doesn't just say, the man picked up the shield was round and it had these features and it had this engraved upon it. He uses the time machine powers of writing to go back to when the shield was created, and he discusses the process. Basically, that he gives the shield a history, and through that history we learn through actions what it looks like. And so he is generating context, action context, in which the details of this physical object can come to light. Obviously, you cannot take the time to describe the history of every single inanimate object that you want to even mention in your story. That's not quite what I'm saying, and you shouldn't take it that far. What I am saying, though, is I think there's something to learn from Homer, and that we can create our own contexts for detail, and that we can use action to create those contexts. He even has some things related to character description, which is going to help us relate back to the last video. He would, instead of just saying the woman was beautiful, he would discuss how the woman's beauty impacted the men around her. rather than give this long description like I would have back when I was in elementary school about what her hair was and what color her eyes were and various details such as that. He describes the way that the characters react to her beauty. So again, he's using action and internalization from other characters to help explain the physical description of this character. It's an idea I really like, and it's something I want to keep in mind as I craft detail into the stories that I'm writing. Since I am someone who has such a problem with not wanting to put in detail if I cannot do it subtly, I really appreciate the idea of being able to find other spaces, nooks and crannies in the story where detail can come to light rather than just the visual aspect of what's going on with this person right now. It's a much more omniscient approach to revealing detail because you can literally place the camera anywhere at any point in time within any other character and still get the basic point across without just putting a snapshot camera right in front of the character and taking the picture saying, here you go, this is what they look like. I'm not saying this is the way to reveal detail, but I am saying it's something worth experimenting with, and it's definitely something I want to try and fiddle around with on my own. I still have a little bit more to say about my workshop experience, but until next time, I will see you later, and thanks for watching. Bye.